that to me is the difference between somebody who's a fanatic or an ideologue.
And go up like that.
So
and get attached to the bottom, and then you'll have that flap, and then the Myrex will come across. Can we stop having the tail wag the dog? Like, instead of coming up with this kind of purist idea that inherently is going to have a problem, let's just not do that.
So we don't like to use the expression high performance.
Well, I don't like to use it personally because high performance almost immediately insinuates that it's going to cost more. Exactly.
Okay, so here we've got the R9 panel. Here, I'm going to get on your level.
There we go.
Wow, the air's thinner up here.
It is.
Yeah.
It's harder to breathe up here. People don't realize that. But, and as I'm solving for it, that curve is going like this, right? It's going like that. And at some point, it doesn't make sense to solve anymore, right? Because I'm already kind of there, right? I've solved for the better part of the system. It's kind of like,
hey, we're back. Well,
yeah.
we really never left.
We never really left. We just a few seconds ago, they were casting the foundation.
Yeah, we were talking
walls.
about foundations. We clicked our heel 3 times, and now there's a house there.
2, 3, 4, 5 different foundation wall systems. Look at that. It's up.
Ice and water. So what's the name of this project?
This is the New Age Estate. Don't ask me where it came from.
Where did it come from?
I'm going to blame it on Lexi. Lexi named it.
Lexi, okay.
Because she's not here. So it's really easy to blame her.
Yeah.
So
she needs to go back to naming school.
Yeah, naming school. I know.
Hopefully somebody else names the baby.
I don't know. It's better than Old Age Estate.
That's true. That's true.
But no.
So tell me a little bit about the project.
We got a lot happening here. So it's, I hate to use the words high performance, but I would say it's a house with a lot of great decisions.
Yeah.
Right? The homeowner, obviously we're going to strive to get close to net zero.
Okay.
Here, we don't have the best orientation with this lot. It's probably the buildable part of the lot is only about 50 feet wide and about 200 feet long, and it faces east. So south is, this way. So we don't
north is always up. So.
And north is always up. So we're, the sun is up, so that helps a little. But there's a lot of great details. We have zip R9 on the outside, so we have continuous insulation we can talk about. This has some really good details with the rip sill and the way we install the windows, the extended mud sill, so we can certainly review those. But I think one of the really important aspects of this project is it's not so much the details and the, me being the architect or Howell being the builder, it's the teamwork that Howell and I have together. Their people are just really great. The project super out here is a gentleman named Brian, and it's like, if I could spend the rest of my career building with Brian, I would. It would be my number one choice. He's just a really great guy. I learn stuff from him all the time, but he always asks things in the form of a question. Not like, hey, I want to do this, what do you think? It's, hey, what are we going to do here? This is what I was thinking. And it's a really great way to have that conversation between an architect and the builder. And I try and do the same thing. It's like, hey, Brian, I do all the framing plans, floor framing, roof framing. That's just a solution. If he comes out and says, hey, I want to kick this truss over and I want to do this and that, and we'll just fur this wall out. That's fine, Brian, if that's what you want to do. So
you're not that architect that's king? Has to be all done?
It has to be that, or more than not, the architect that says, I have no idea, just do it however you want to do it, right? It's like Brian and I can have very intelligent conversations, and I think the win on that is not only is our homeowner going to win because they're great people, but the homeowner has said to us a number of times, hey, I hired you guys because you guys tell me you're the best. Figure it out and just tell me what I need to do. And then Brian and I will hash it out, or somebody in the office, the owner, Steve Howell, the whole team from the owner down. I mean, Steve does a really good job of, setting the tone for his company. And even when we early design meetings, it's like, hey, this is how we typically do it, but we're open. They never roll their eyes at the table when the client says, hey, can we do this? Can I put a golf simulator in our basement? It's like, oh, you want to put a golf simulator? They're just, well, if that's what you want to do, we'll price it up and we'll get you a number this afternoon. And if you want to go for it, then we'll just make the changes and we'll make it happen.
So the team's not just Howell Builder. The team's
No.
Steve Baczek, architect.
Howell, and then we have Reagan, the interior designer, same thing. Reagan said, hey, can we have a Zoom call? I want to review with you what we were thinking to do on the inside. So she's, out of respect, she's like, I just want to have a conversation with you. You had some initial thoughts, let's get
Sounds
together.
to me like everybody's just a really good communicator.
Everybody's a very good communicator, but there's no egos, there's nobody really, owning any decision. Every decision is, okay, we'll talk it out and we'll come up with the best decision. And that's what I would think any client would want.
Yeah.
From a custom house.
Yeah. Well, shall we go look at some of the details?
Let's go take a look down.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm going to go this way.
I'm following you.
So we don't like to use the expression high performance.
Well, I don't like to use it personally because high performance almost immediately insinuates that it's going to cost more and we're doing something well above and beyond. No, we're making good decisions, right? If you go to get an oil change, you can choose this oil, you can choose this synthetic oil, or you can choose this premium oil. Obviously the synthetic, it's going to last longer. The premium is going to last even longer. It's going to be better for your engine. So you're making decisions based on value. So we have a lot of discussions with our clients and homeowners and with the builder. Howell was in on this basically like from the first design meeting. So they're always putting in their 2 cents too. Hey, we could do that. It's going to cost you a little more if you do that approach versus this one, but we can do either one. We think we should do this one. And then they leave it at that and we make decisions and move on. But here we're using Zip R9. You could have used Zip R3, R6.
So R9 is 7/16 panel.
Yes.
Wood structural panel over 1.5 boom?
Yes.
Polyiso.
So it's 1 inch and 15/16.
Okay. So just 2 inches total.
Yes.
So we can see that here.
So we can see that here. We have they've already put the trim board down. This is a piece of acre under here, but there's a extended, I call it the extended mud sill detail. There's a 2x8 here and a 2x6 that sits back.
And they're flush on the inside.
They're relatively flush, but
to
it
each
doesn't
other.
matter, yes, because it's up in the top of the foundation. But the 2x8 is flush with this face, so that allows, gives you a nailer to put this trim board on, and we're going to have a water table detail and stuff here. But the reason for the double sill is that the inside sill sits back the 1 inch and 15/16. It allows us to shear nail this panel to the mud sill.
Okay, so if we're snapping lines 5.5, that's what we're going to do, but the first piece of mud sill is 2x8 sticks out.
Yes.
And that's going to protect the bottom of the Zip R9.
Exactly.
Then the second piece is right on top of that. It's all bolted together, and the panel's nailed to that.
And that panel's nailed to that, and that's nailed to the 2x8, which is anchored to the foundation.
And then it's all
and then
taped.
This is all planed out. Yes. Yeah, this is all taped and sealed up. This is all planed out. Like I said, we're using Acre, which is it's a reconstituted rice hull product.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know, but
No.
I tell everybody rice hulls are probably like the largest waste product in the world. Like we have tons and tons of this stuff that nobody knows what to do with, and Modern Mills has figured out, hey, we can reconstitute it into a wood panel or wood board, and then you can use it as trim. It doesn't rot, it's insect repellent, it carries all of the things that say like a True Exterior or Boral or AZEK PVC. They argue that it's a little bit more stable. It can take paint. It actually has somewhat of a wood grain to it, so you can stain it and make it look like wood. You can use it as siding and or trim. We're going to use it as all of our trim here. When we go around, you'll see, and we might be able to grab a piece off of the pallet there.
So while we're here, the tape is sealing our wall assembly down here at the bottom?
It's sealing the air assembly to the 2x8, and it's air sealed inside with some Lexel from Sashco. Which is actually sealing the wall.
Backside of mud sill to the concrete has Lexel? Okay.
Yes.
And then anything under the mud sill?
Under the mud sill, that's where we have typical sill sealer with a couple beads of the Lexel.
And then I'm looking at this, and we'll look at it from inside too.
Yes.
But what are we seeing there?
So we have an 18-inch piece of My Vest that gets draped over the top plate before the roof trusses get set. it's a flat ceiling on the inside, so our air barrier is coplanar with the bottom of the roof trusses. And there we're going to use Myrex, but the challenge is we have Myrex on the inside and we have zip as our primary air barrier. We have to make that connection. And so the connection is, in fact, using the MyVest. We drape it over here, we drape it off on the inside. Here, we tape it off and seal it to the zip, which is our primary air barrier out here. And then the inside flap, we will rotate up, tack it to the bottom of the trusses, bring the Myrex across and tape it, and then basically connect this flap to the flap across.
I can visualize somebody with a red pen drawing a line.
The red line test, yes, where you draw that line around. Exactly, exactly.
Okay, I have some questions on the front porch along this idea of high performance, but not just good decision making.
Yeah, it's you know, I mean, a lot of people use high performance because they always think of it as a way of, hey, doing this, but the reality is, and you could talk to this, in your area of the United States, we're moving into the requirement of exterior insulated sheathing.
Yeah, if we do the prescriptive route,
right,
versus performance.
But I'm saying as short as maybe 5 or 8 years ago, it really wasn't an issue. I'm going to go inside and I'll just catch up with you in the window. But 5 or 8 years ago, insulating sheathing in your neck of the woods was considered, above and beyond.
It was like avant-garde.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we're going to do this high performance Ferrari of a house. And now it's become the Ford Taurus of building up there. So that's why I say get rid of the high performance and just talk about just different levels of decision making.
It's like we moved from carburetors to fuel injected.
Exactly.
Now it's just standard.
Exactly.
Okay, so here we've got the R9 panel. Here, I'm going to get on your level.
There we go.
Wow, the air's thinner up here.
It is. Yeah. It's harder to breathe up here. People don't realize that.
So 2x6 wall.
2x6 wall.
2 inch and 15/16 total thickness.
Yes.
So explain this detail to me, and then we'll maybe talk about the sill.
So we have the MyVest, and when it comes in terms of water management and air management, probably in building science in general, the most important word is continuity, right? So I have air barrier, weather resistant barrier out here. I'm going to put a window in here. The window in here needs to attach to that somehow. So if you remember the days of house wrap, we'd slice the house wrap, fold it in. So all we've done here is cut the zip panel and folded it in. We didn't do the zip R9 here. We just did the R panel because it's in an insulated cavity, wall, but we folded in. So now this and that are essentially the same face. They're just on a different plane.
So this makes me think of what you just talked about, the Myrex at the top.
Yes.
We're just doing the same thing on a vertical.
We're doing the same thing on the vertical. So that's going to come around, and then that's going to connect the window. The window will go around, do the mirror or opposite hand detail there, and then we maintain continuity across the opening.
Well, if this wasn't going to be an arched window, would you do the same thing? So 3 sides?
It would be all 3 sides. And we're still going to do it there. The reason this isn't built out is Brian, who's the super, very extremely cautious. We're going to get the windows in. While he takes the final measurement of the window, he'll come in and he'll build this arch exactly to the window
Once bitten,
spec.
twice shy. I've done that wrong.
Yeah, you could build this and then you go to put the window in and it doesn't fit, or you put the window in and there's a 2-inch space. And it's like, okay, how do we pad that out now? So these will be the last 3 windows that he puts in.
Okay. So then down here, I'm seeing this piece is built up.
That piece is built up. Tape. So we have basically what we call a back dam. There's a little dam here. So if any water comes in, it can't come in any further.
And what is that made of?
That's just a piece of, I think it's a piece of PVC.
Okay.
And then there's actually a sloped sill on most of them. Yeah. We have a sill material that's also a PVC material that what I say is it gives motivation for the water to drain out.
Here's a building science question for you. What's the slope that you go for on the sill in degrees?
Oh, I mean, it's probably like 2 degrees.
2 degrees? Okay.
That's why I call it motivation. It's not like a high. It's just, if I pour a bottle of water, it's going to move that way. I don't care how slow it goes, as long as it doesn't move this way.
Okay.
Right? So.
We ever told you the story in like the late 70s when Dad was doing everything, starting the company? They hung cabinets and countertop And the the lady that bought the house just loved it, that if you spilled water, it would pour off the front face onto the floor.
Yeah.
And like, no, they're supposed to be
wow,
level.
that was really smart, guys. They're like, no, that was a mistake.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is right up here, I think you can duck out and see it.
Yeah.
The LVL.
Yep.
So anytime we puncture the air barrier, we got to seal it up.
We have to seal it up, yes.
So who's doing that sealing?
So the framer or Brian. I mean, one of the things about Howell that's maybe a little different than a lot of builders, and I'm going to get myself in trouble here because to me there's builders and then there's companies that are contract aggregators, right? So builders are guys that can come here and it's like they put the beam in. Brian or one of the other 4 guys can get a tube of caulk and do that. Contract aggregators are the gentleman that drives up in his, F-350 or
Tesla
250,
Cybertruck.
and I point out that that's not air sealed, and he says, not a problem. I'll call the framer and get him down here next week, and we'll address that, right? Because their contract is with the framer. They're not building anything. They're managing all the subcontractors.
So right above you, same thing. Why am I looking at zip and zip on a lid?
Yeah. So this was an interesting part. We have this kind of half or shed extension of the gable that comes down, and it actually comes all the way down to here. But when we were designing it, the homeowner said, can we push that wall back a little, because there's a little triangular space. Can we push that back and get like a little study nook in one of the kids' bedrooms? And I was like, sure. So there we go. We pushed that wall back 2 feet, so now we had to close that in and treat it like part of the air barrier. And
so
that's
they had
all
to
it
fit
is.
the zip between it and then liquid flash to the framing member?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they
It used to be that we just had to get our math right to frame a roof. Like this is like finished carpentry for framers.
This is finished carpentry for framers. There was a lot. I mean, we have like 3 different roof pitches up here, and it all comes together, and then it juts out 2 feet and comes across. And I've actually shot a couple videos for the build show just talking about all of the math in trying to figure this out. I had like 3 or 4 building sections overlaid and kept, okay, if I inch this up 3 inches and I drop this bird's mouth down a 1/2 inch, the fascias will align on this 5 and this 10 or whatever. And but it all came together nice. Brian, they did a really good job. One of the things I've never seen them do before is they went around, and I think it was maybe to just pad out the soffit, but they added a 7/16 in there to give some solid nailing.
Yeah, at Luke's job, I'm trying to remember if they're 2 or 3 foot overhangs. They went ahead and sheathed them all.
Yeah.
And that way all of their tongue and groove trim material could land wherever it needed to land.
Yeah, you could just nail it in.
Yeah.
And it's like, we do the Myrex detail here, but we actually have a project in South Dakota, which I'm calling probably one of the best walls we've ever done. It's easily one of the best walls built in America from a building science standpoint. But the air barrier inside, the builder asked, can we not do the Myrex and can I just put zip on the ceiling? So the whole ceiling, it's a 1-story ranch with a walkout, but the whole ceiling, 3,600 square feet or so, is all zip.
So a zip lid, does that mean that on the exterior wall, the framers, before trusses, they nailed down like
They did a 16-inch rip, so we get 3 out of a sheet, and then they would just put it down. And because we have a 12-inch wall, it's a perfect wall where the zip is actually, the zip is in the middle. There's a cavity wall there, but then there's a 2x6 wall outside of the zip that will also get insulation. So basically what you're seeing here is the middle of the wall there. So that extension goes in and it gives us about a 4-inch ledge. So when we put the zip across, we can just simply nail that off. So it's maintaining this continuity like we talked about in the windows, but now it's going up and folding over the top plate.
Interesting.
And going across the ceiling and coming down the other side. So it's, again, build the green box and then set the roof on top of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's go there. Click my heel.
There we go. Yeah, we should go there. We'll get up there.
Okay, inside. Floor trusses, how tall? 18 inch, 16 inch?
Yeah, these are 18-inch floor trusses here. So just it provides some nice lateral movement with electrical and all of that stuff.
Do you strap all of your ceilings, or is this?
We strap all of our ceilings here in New England. It's, people have often asked, like, oh, do you do every house? And it's like, at this point, if we didn't strap it, I think the electricians would like break down or not. Be like, I'm not coming here until you strap the ceiling. Yeah. Just because with trusses, it's a little different because they can just run their wires inside, but we always strap the ceiling.
Question then. Flipping around, I'm looking at pretty massive LVL.
Yes.
How come this guy's lower? Oh, it's just the header. Okay. I just needed to walk around and see this side.
Yeah. So that one, there's going to be a wall there that will eventually get framed in there because this is the dining room, and then there's a little front entry vestibule there. But that rises up and obviously carries this because this ceiling planes out. This is all kitchen in here. So that comes out. Now, one of the questions that I get, and I'm sure you have seen them before or have gotten them, we have this 18-inch LVL, and people are like, oh, you have 18-inch LVL, and it comes in on this 12-inch LVL. That thing's going to fall and collapse in a couple of years. That's going to be sagging.
At least.
Yeah. But the reality is here's a thought. Let's get it engineered. Let's have somebody do the math, right? Imagine that.
Well, we got a shorter span.
We have, this span is about half of that span.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you have to understand, not only is that half of this span, that thing is only taking half the load of that beam because the other half is going into that column.
And this beam is only taking
half of this floor. So again, when people look at it, they get all nutty about, oh, that's going to collapse, but it isn't going to collapse.
Yeah.
Because that thing can probably carry something on the order of about, maybe 1,100 pounds, 1,200 pounds a foot, where this thing is probably only carrying like 500 pounds a foot. Right? So that beam, believe it or not, is probably twice as strong as that. This just has to be thicker because it's a longer span.
It's just enough. So, okay. So along those lines then, half is going there, half is going here.
Right.
So one jack stud or trimmer stud won't be enough.
One wouldn't be enough.
So the engineer spec'd all that.
So the engineer comes back and says, hey, we need 3 studs.
Which means that there's something in the floor.
Which means there's something in the floor and there's solid blocking that goes down.
We're talking load paths, people.
Imagine that.
It's the path that the load takes.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember watching, I think it was Bob Vila way back in the day. Way back. And they illustrated it like if water was coming down. Half would shed to this.
Yeah.
Come this way.
Mm-hmm.
Very simplistic.
I know. I should shoot more videos. It's funny because, we both shoot a lot of videos, and you would think, like, oh, I really got to think, like, what's something like people have never seen before? Well, the things that people have never seen before is the very simple load path of an engineered beam and column.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it gets tons of views, but people don't really understand it. And you can tell. And it's just like when you look at, say, this header, right? This header, I call them header pockets. We do a 9.5-inch LVL, we hold it tight to the outside. So now we have an insulation pocket there that the insulator can insulate the same time he's insulating this cavity, right? It's just another cavity. So we don't have to get in sandwiching, rigid insulation, none of that stuff. The insulator does it. But if we take this one and notice that, we have, 3.5 inches or 3.25 inches on the outside of that 5.5. But if we go down here, notice this one is shallower. This opening is about 30% more than that opening. So we had to jump up to 2 LVLs here. So it's a shallower pocket. So this header is doing a little more work. We have to make it a little bigger header. Notice that we have doubles because our structural engineer says any opening over 3 feet, I want to see 2 trimmers there because of the load that's coming in. It's one of those things that it's probably an overreach, but it's a simple overreach saying, hey, just at 3 feet, put in 2 trimmers.
So what insulation will you end up putting in there, rigid?
We'll probably do just a spray foam, a close cell or something in
and
there.
It's already got 1.5 inches on the outside.
Because it already has the 1.5 inches, and we're gonna come and they'll spray 4 inches in the band joist.
Okay.
So the day that they're there, they'll just drop down and they'll just shoot that. All of this is gonna get a Timber HP wood fiber.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're doing a blown in here, and then we're going to use bats for acoustical reasons.
So I'll
in
click
some
my
of the
heels
interior
and I'll
roofs.
come back when that
You
happens.
come back when that happens.
So along the lines, I think here's a good place to show it. So I noticed that all of your zip was installed horizontally.
Yep.
No blocking on the panel edge. Oh, you okay?
You almost caught me going through the floor. It's not. This is a chimney.
Okay.
There's a big fireplace that's going to go here.
Don't step there.
Don't step there.
So no blocking on the seams.
No blocking. We check with the structural engineer. If he does a full, thorough shear analysis, if it's required, he'll come in and say, hey, sometimes we have to we'll put like 2x4s on the flat or something. But because of this, and it's the same as the beam, right? People say, oh, you have to always block all the seams. No, you don't. Because if I have a 400 square foot elevation and I only have 20 square feet of windows versus another elevation that's 400 square feet where I have 200 square feet of window, I don't have as much shear value in the 200 square feet as I do in the 40 square feet. So obviously I need to complement that with additional bracing and blocking and all of these things.
So what you're telling me is the engineer evaluates the site conditions, the wind exposure, the seismic zone, and then runs the calcs.
Yes. I mean, one of the questions he always asks our structural engineers, what's the address? Because then he has to check it against, are we in a high wind zone? How far are we from the ocean? All of these things he has to run his little
So even in the
checks
same
on.
house, what you're saying is that each wall might have its own independent analysis.
Right.
But once we're fully sheathed, a lot of times that just simplifies the analysis.
Yeah, we can walk out to the garage later and I'll show you out there. We weren't able to satisfy the shear with the Zip R9, so we had to complement it with some other thoughts. And we did that. And occasionally, sometimes we have hold downs. Sometimes we might just have to do blocking on that one wall or plywood on the inside. Now, it's interesting why we did that.
Yeah.
And it's not to supplement the shear, the shear values of the wall. Brian, the guy in charge here, him and the framers, when they frame this, they like to put the sheathing on after the wall is stood up.
So this is just their temp bracing.
So they square the wall on the floor, they put that in to hold the wall square, stand it up, and then sheathe it. It's not because they're in fear of the shear value, it's a temporary holding pattern for the wall
It just
frame.
lets them, yeah, because otherwise we'd lift the wall, throw a level on the end, add a temp brace. The temp brace is in the way of something.
Yes.
This is out of the way.
That's out of the way, and it keeps the wall square and true until.
This
and
Brian guy
they put
sounds
that
like
shear.
a real genius.
Brian is very good.
Yeah.
Brian is very good. He's a good thinker. So I always learn stuff.
I'm learning stuff.
Talking with him.
Yeah, that's great.
But we can go out there. We were talking about the, on the interior, you can see the Siga Majest. So it hangs down. And then just looking to see if I have, let me just grab a stick here.
I just noticed every time we point toward the sun. You're leaving? Nice to see you, man.
Fun to watch both of you.
I know.
I was looking for a point to like.
Just jump in anytime.
jump in, but
Yeah.
This has been fun to watch, just to see your process in person, to watch your ability to improvise an interview.
Sounds
All right,
good.
bud.
Thanks, Aaron. I forgot my belt.
That's all right.
Okay, so my vest.
So we have the Majest, and you can see here it goes around. And the reason it goes around here is because we have a cathedralized attic there. So it's going to connect to that. But also here, this is where we were talking about it on the outside. And I grabbed the stick. So what we were talking about is this is just going to come out. Whoa, this is just going to come out and go up like that.
So
And get
they'll-
attached to the bottom. And then you'll have that flap, and then the Myrex will come across and simply attach to that.
Okay, so my vest is just a little more durable for when they're
It's a
dragging
little bit
trusses?
more durable, and it comes in an 18-inch roll. The
okay.
Myrex we can use, and guys will just cut it on the chop saw.
Yeah.
But this is a little bit more durable.
Okay.
So we switch to the Myvest there. And then we'll have the Myrex coming across. And then you can see here, this is another detail to talk about. Notice we're inside the building, but you're seeing the Zip R9. And the reason you're seeing it is the backside of that Zip R9 is conditioned space.
And this
it's
is
actually a small mechanical room.
vented.
This is an unconditioned vented attic.
Vented attic, okay.
Right? So our air barrier is going to be at the ceiling. It comes here and then it goes up the wall. So we'll attach it to the bottom of that Zip R9 panel.
Do you
and take
use
it
like
up.
the double-sided tape along this?
Yeah,
and
we'll use the double-sided tape, and they'll tape it up, and they'll probably on the inside when they're doing the band joist, they'll just go around and do like a 1-inch blow of closed cell and kind of seal that joint and get it really nice. And that's why, hence, there's a little door. And the other thing, I don't know if you use a lot of trusses.
Mostly hand cut.
Yeah. So one of the things that Brian likes to do, he likes to put a catwalk in every attic, right? So a couple 2x4s across the truss, a couple planks up there, 2 or 3 inches above the insulation level, and now you can get up there later and do things after you get 22 inches of insulation. You're not kind of slushing through it.
So the other thing I noticed, this is already caulked to the plate?
They've already caulked that, yeah. Brian, he gets a little crazy, and sometimes it's like if he's got a guy and he needs something to do, it's like, hey, here's a caulk gun, go do this.
Well, that's kind of the reality of, I had some people criticizing me for nailing deck joists and not hangering as I went. I've got an apprentice that needs to learn how to use the tools and master, he's got to get his reps in on hangers. So.
And there's days where I need him lugging 2x10s out in the yard.
Yeah.
And on this rainy day, you got nothing to do, Jimmy? Go grab that palm nailer and that bucket of nails, and let's go down.
So as soon as this thing's undercover and dried,
he'll go through.
So there's still going to be interior walls that will butt
There's
this.
still a whole bunch of interior
so
walls and stuff in here.
Makes a lot more sense just to do it all.
Just to do it all. It's a lot easier than trying to do, piecemeal. And I'm surprised you haven't asked about the poly.
Well, I was just about to ask about the poly. Hey, Steve, what's the deal with the poly here?
So you would think it's some highfalutin building science detail, but it isn't. This is just lunchroom enclosure. Right? All the guys, they come in here for their lunch on the colder
days. And somebody has to remember an hour before lunch to turn this on.
Come in and plug in the heater. Yeah, they probably plug it in when they get here first thing in the morning. So it's nice and toasty in here.
So I can see the My Vest
You can
ready
see
to
the
go
My
up.
Vest here. It'll flap up and it'll get attached to the bottom side of those scissor trusses. And for those of you that don't, if you want to come in, those of you that aren't aware, we can point it out up here, but you can see, I don't know if you ever had a name. The name that I learned, the 2x6 piece that goes in there that splits to create the energy truss, it's called a slider. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. So, and I've gotten that when my days of working down in New Mexico, we just all truss roofs. And that's what the truss company called them. They call them sliders. They're basically a 2x6 that slides into that joint and it expands the joint. So now we have a 10-inch heel, which was what was spec'd here.
Interesting. So, we need to do a tour of a truss. I watched one the other day on social media. They lay out the pieces, the guy hits the gang plates, then the roller comes over.
The roller comes over, but there's also, we went to one where they have a compressor that's on a giant articulated arm, and it's just 2 plates of steel. So they'll have the bottom one, they'll put the plate under, and then they'll put the plate over, and then they just slide this thing and it just goes like this, and then opens back up, and they pull it off, and they just go around and hit all the joints. So it's I've seen them both ways, but that would be pretty cool to go check it out. So but yeah, again, tuned headers. Notice that one's a little thicker than that one.
Less.
Yeah, a little less room there. So.
And no need for a header here.
And no need for a header there because we have that beam up there.
Oh no, there's the header. There's the header.
Yeah, it's
on this side.
So,
okay, so they just slam the header up top and then frame down the door height to whatever the door height needs to be.
Yeah, they put the header in first and then they'll build it down to whatever. A lot of guys, and you notice they leave that, they'll come back and then they'll cut that out later when they go to put the door in. That's a pretty typical.
Add one more jack
or they'll add one more, however they do it. But
I see what you're saying. Just run the saw. Yeah. Nobody's tripping on it. And then
nobody's tripping on it, and then they'll just come back and trim it out or do whatever they have to do.
So
later.
I have something of value to offer to this discussion. I have one thing.
There you go.
Good on these guys for wearing the fall protection.
They don't. It's funny because we came out here and we were going to shoot some video, and Brian was very adamant. He goes, anybody steps out of the lull cage, they're strapped in.
Yeah.
Even in the lull cage, he makes you get strapped to the cage.
Good. It's got to come from the top down.
Yeah. He's
not just the rope.
There's no, hey, you're only going to be up there for 30 seconds. Go ahead. None of that.
That's when it goes bad.
And that's exactly when you expect it not to happen is exactly when it happens. All right. So anyways.
Yeah, interesting.
But you want to take a walk? We'll go out and we'll catch up out on the garage, and we can talk about garage portals since we're totally into this whole shear game.
Speaking of interior shirt wall,
I think they put that up as an
Just to
equipment
hang.
wall. So, you know, because there's a double wall. We actually have another wall here. There's like a 10-inch cavity for all of our ventilation shafts and some dedicated shaft there. So I think he sheared that because this isn't going to get drywalled.
Okay.
There's another wall out here that's like, I think it's like 12 or 14 inches off. That one will get drywalled between that room and this room, and there's a wall that goes across here. So he did that. He can hang all his stuff, but that can keep that wall true until it's time. But
well, there's times where I'd sheet a wall and Brian's like, well, that's extra money. I'm like, but it simplifies the construction process.
yeah, and it gives you a place to hang all of your stuff. These are the little eyebrows that are going to go up over the top. They'll just drag them over there. They'll pick them up by the forks of the lull and take them up to the roof. It's a lot easier to build that here, and it's safer. You don't have to be all strapped in.
Working at
And you're
floor
working
level.
floor
And it's good dry
level.
work.
The chop saw and everything is set up right here.
So I wonder,
And,
they've already put ice and water up on the roof. They'll just drop this on
Just
top.
drop it on top.
And then integrate it.
And they'll just integrate it on top of that. Yep.
You got a good crew here.
Yeah. No, they're very good. Very good.
I mean, even the nails, fasteners are organized. That's great.
Brian is he's on top of his game. But out here, you'll notice we dropped down to an R6. Now it's the garage. The garage isn't conditioned, but we still had to keep that, basically that 2-inch dimension. So all of our soffits and everything were the same dimension. But the structural engineer said, we can't, there's not enough wall here to do it as an R panel. So we did 1/2-inch plywood, and then we put the R6 panel on that, and this is 1 inch instead of 1.5 inches. So it's the same dimension as the R9 panel, but this wall is probably twice as strong from a shear value.
Yeah, no, okay, we got the wood structural panel. So essentially, this really is just, it's insulation, and we're
It's
just trying to
insulation
match
on the
thickness.
outside with a nailer, right? That's all it is. But this is, you know, when people get all in a tizzy about, oh, shear values and this and that, it's, you know, sometimes we do.
Yeah.
We have to go to that. But that's what's engineered.
Well, like using your analogy earlier, I don't know, what's the dimension on this?
It's probably about 40 feet.
And you've got 10-foot doors?
Three 9-footers.
9-foot doors?
Yeah.
So do the math, there's not much
27,
shear.
that still leaves you 13 feet. 13 feet for 4 openings, right?
Yeah.
So that's 4 foot on the ends and 3 foot in the middle. It's not a lot.
Yeah, oh, and then I guess just to follow up what you were saying earlier, this is also R9.
Yes.
Even though it's inside the garage, it's an exterior wall.
It's an exterior wall. And notice it actually goes around the corner, right? If we came over
okay.
here and you look at the framing, you'll notice that the first stud of the garage wall is actually outside of the R9. So they basically built this wall, sheathed it, taped it, and then stood this wall up, pushed it up against that, and nailed it off.
And they've sealed the mud sill.
And they sealed the mud sill.
What? How come so many plates down
I know, I was waiting for that
Well, I
question
figure
to come.
somebody's going to ask it. It better be me
Yeah,
first.
so I think they got their pre-cut studs, and rather than wait till the next day to get it ordered, they just used a bunch of the pre-cut studs and built that up.
Yeah.
My structural engineer would be in a little bit of a tizzy. He's got a rule of let's not do more than 3 plates.
More than 3. Because you start to get like a
Yeah,
hinge.
you get a hinge, but it's also the compressive value of that is a lot less than on end. So he just doesn't like to see it. So,
Yeah.
But yes.
No, we got to answer the question before it's asked.
But think
right?
of the good shear nailing you're getting.
Yeah.
On the
you can't
outside.
miss. As a framer, you're like, this is great.
You can't miss in the first 12 inches.
Nail by braille.
Nail by braille.
And then is this a single, or it's probably a 2-ply or
Yes,
3-ply?
that's a 40-foot triple LVL. Or no, it's a 2-ply, sorry. It is a 2-ply.
40-footer.
Yeah, and it's one 40-footer that they place with the lull. And again, that's one of the beauties of having a lull out on the job site.
Yeah, but you have to have one.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, if we're in the garage, why the MyVest?
I think because we might be putting insulation up there, and Brian said, you know what, it's better to put it up and not have
need
a
it.
need for it than to try and figure out, because you work with sometimes with clients. In the world of solely working with clients, they have their initial ideas, then they have their 10 series of changes. And inevitably, we're going to be ready to drywall, and the homeowner is going to be like, hey, can we insulate the garage and make that, tight? And, can we put a heater in there? Yeah, but we're really not prepared for that. So this is really very, very short money.
Yeah, that's the voice of experience.
Yes, of saying, okay, rather than having to chase this down later, let's just put it in, guys.
Yeah.
Just roll it out and nail it.
And that's why
up.
people hire you as an architect, Howell as a builder, Howell has Brian.
Yes.
You're forward
So
thinking.
there is so many people looking at the same thing from a different perspective. It's like there's no way we're not going to build a successful house.
Yeah.
Right? Let's take a walk outside. There's one more detail I want to show you. That just watch, we have the rebar standing up there. Nice little tripping hazard.
And that's ready to accept the slab.
They'll just bend that over and accept the slab.
Bend it over now so that nobody impales themselves.
But I wanted to show you this because we talked about the extended mud sill. This is a detail, when we were driving over here, we had the conversation of when you asked, hey, what do you do different now than say you did 20 years ago? And one of my comments was, our window details, we're probably in like a 9th or 10th generation from the very first one that I ever drew of a European window. And our latest thinking is this idea of a rip sill. So just like the ledger down below, we have the extended ledger, and then we have what I call the top sill, which sits back. Here we have a standard sill here, rough sill. It sits back 1 15/16. That's what this is nailed to. But the problem was, builders, when you have that exposed 1.5 inches of polyiso up here, they're like, well, how do I attach stuff to it? How do I attach stuff to this? So that's why we're putting that jam liner in. And a lot of our houses in New England, we're putting like a 8-quarter sill on the front of this. And it's like, hey, I have nothing to attach that to. Mm-hmm. It's all foam. It really, you even with a 3-inch screw, it's like still wiggling. So I said, you know what? From now on, we're going to give up the performance. And this is that whole idea of high performance. It's just about making the right decisions. For me, I would rather have something solid to attach to and veer very highly on durability and give up the little thermal break, right? I mean, we probably have, 12,000 square feet of surface area. I'll give up the 100 square feet, or it's probably not even that, it's probably like 30 square feet of sills. And to get better durability. Now I have something to nail to. We're going to flash this, which we could probably go around the corner and see one.
So that to me is the difference between somebody who's a fanatic or an ideologue. Like we all want to make it perform better, last longer.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, let's maximize the pure insulation.
Yeah.
There still is a structural and a practical component to building the thing and having it work.
Yeah, and I mean, I sit in on a lot of these, nightly little get-togethers and stuff, and they have people talking about it. And I remember one of these where the architect was one of these purists, and they had rock wool and all this stuff on there, and then they was holding water, so their solution, and they were talking about it. They're like, well, we're going to drill holes now to drain the water. And, being in the crowd, I was like, I made the comment of, can we stop having the tail wag the dog? Like, instead of coming up with this kind of purist idea that inherently is going to have a problem, let's just not do that. Let's accept it, right? Something has to be the worst part of the building. And if it isn't this, if I solve for this, then something else just becomes the worst part. And as I'm solving for it, that curve is going like this, right? It's going like that. And at some point, it doesn't make sense to solve anymore, right? Because I'm already kind of there, right? I've solved for the better part of the system. It's kind of like, by the time you get up here, now you're asking your car mechanic to say, hey, can you tune the motor to see if I can get, instead of 21 miles per gallon, I want to get 21.25 miles per gallon. And, you know, here's $1,000 to figure out how to do it. It doesn't make sense anymore, right? And that's what we're doing when we're chasing these ideas. It's like, come up with a good idea, make it last, make it durable, make it make sense from a building science perspective. It's draining water, all of that good stuff. But some things we just will live with, right? I mean, this still has a insulation value of probably, I don't know, 1 per inch. So it's probably about R8. So it's not the end of the world.
And the window itself is...
And the window is probably about R8. So think of this as, this is just part of the window.
Tiny bit more glass.
Yeah. You know, so
Yeah,
anyways.
looks good.
But
it looks good.
It's coming. And there you see the acre installed as trim, and, you know, that'll go all around our windows. And
So I guess one thing while we're here, we got the My Rex.
My Vest
My Vest, okay.
connects to the My Rex inside. It's
Okay.
kind of like the ankle bone's connected to the knee bone, right? The zip's connected to the My Vest connected to the My Rex.
We got to turn that into a song.
Yeah.
So that'll still get taped.
No, because that's folded down. It's already kind of self-flashing. The top edge, yes.
The top edge
will
needs
get
to,
taped,
and that's more for like just the weather part of things.
the weather-resistant part
But not
of,
really
of that. But this is a piece of that acre. You can see it up close.
So to me, it looks like an MDF.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar. I want to get down to the factory. I keep telling them I need to get down there and see it. It's made down in Mississippi. But they bring in all these rice hulls. And I remember I used to have a little block on my desk, a little like 2x2 cube, and it was a company. This was probably close to 20 years ago. They were trying to figure out how to make like ICF blocks out of rice hulls. And they didn't quite able to do it. And that's where I learned from the guy. He's like, there's just like a gazillion tons of this stuff. It's like the biggest waste product on the planet, but it's highly durable. So how can we turn that into something? And finally somebody's come up with a...
What's interesting about this is how sharp that... Like
Yeah.
I feel like I could cut myself on that.
It can be cut really, really nice and drilled and
So they're...
painted, stained. And
Yeah.
like I said, it's got like a wood grain finish
I really
to
like that. It almost looks like a mahogany finish.
it.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And it'll...
Super anchor safety.
there
The
you go.
D-. These are great. I'm 99% sure it's Super Anchor. So some of these have proprietary fasteners.
Right.
Super Anchor tries to just take all the fasteners you get at a big box store and include those in the engineering. Because what happens when we don't have the proprietary?
Yes,
You grab whatever's in the van.
exactly.
And they just literally can just screw that to solid framing, clip into
That
it
takes care of it.
inside. And they're cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can reuse them. Just pull the screws.
Especially compared to the surgery.
Yeah.
Should you fall off the roof, right? It's very cheap in that respect.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anything else?
no, I think we've pretty much walked around the house, through the house, looked up and down.
Yeah. I think I'll try to be back when Timber HP, and then hopefully it's a little bit warmer because it's cold today. I'm dressed.
Tim's not used to our New England
No,
weather.
like I was telling Steve-Os, we shut down at 25 degrees because we get there twice a year. Where everybody else shuts down for the rain, we shut down for the cold.
There you
Because
go.
it just doesn't happen.
No.
Well, everybody, thank you
here.
very much for watching this video and the first part. Go follow Steve Baczek Architect on the Build Show and everywhere. Just search your name.
Yes.
And you can find me at Awesome Framers, but you already
found
yeah,
you.
you already found me.
If you're
so,
here.
Yeah.
Anyway. If you're watching this, then you found Tim probably.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering why you stuck around so long. Anyway, hit the like and subscribe button if this is on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Go follow Steve and also everybody else on the Build Show. Why not start plugging Build Show Live for next year?
Yeah, Build Show Live next year. We're going to be in Dallas, October 16, 17, and 18. I mean, this show, all the people that I've talked to that were there loved it. All the people that weren't there said, I can't believe I missed it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, our goal, I think, so Matt Reisinger tasked us with creating a huge amount of fear of missing out.
yes,
And so I think we did a good job of that.
Yes.
It was a good show.
it was a very good show. And even the exhibitors and vendors said one of the best shows they've ever been to.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Nice.
very
Yeah.
good. Very good.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. I think it's pretty obvious that I love working with Mr. Steve Baczek Architect. So this was all unplanned. I had seen a couple of weeks previous to this video, at least to the filming, Steve had posted something on Instagram, and I thought, oh, I wonder, since we came to the projects early, could I fly in and go through the projects again? Because I was already coming to the East Coast. My wife and I had plans to go to the Cayman Islands with very good friends of ours. So I just moved my flight. I flew out really late, like 11:30 on a Friday night, flew overnight. Steve picked me up. Good Lord. It's like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And then we filmed with this and another job. So that was the genesis of this whole catch-up video. And then I would like to show you what we got to enjoy in the Cayman Islands. So enjoy. This is the view from our balcony at our hotel room. We stayed at the Kimpton Seafire Resort. Now, I'm just going to state right off the bat, this is way more than we would ever spend, but we didn't have to spend for it. And this isn't a sponsored video. I did try, because no harm in trying. This is the Kimpton Seafire Resort. It is like the nicest place, I think. I don't know, but it's one of the newest on Grand Cayman. Last summer, Joe figured out which 2 IHG credit cards we need to open, one personal, one business. We both had things we had to buy. Pay it off right away, right? And then you get all the points. Then we picked the week that was between the peak of the holidays, Christmas and New Year and Thanksgiving. That means there's comparatively hardly anybody around. Now, you know, the cruise ships come in, that kind of thing. But the last couple days of our trip, you could tell that's when like whole families came in because it was getting closer to Christmas at that point. So we rented a car for the day, just drove around the entire island. We did the tour through the caves, and that was pretty cool. I think that's worth doing. Just pull up to a beach. I flew the drone. We just wanted to enjoy the beach. And basically what they're doing is they're getting things ready for once all the tourists start to come. We had fantastic weather. No complaints. There's me.
Oh, I captured that.
So we decided to head out to Stingray City. We did that. So I came here in 1996, my like spring break, with my brother and my parents, and we did Stingray City then. So I wasn't as interested in this, but I wanted to fly the drone. And so you just take the boat trip out. Doesn't take that long, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is. And so basically what Stingray City is you can drop anchor, you can get out about up to your knees to your waist, and then they feed the stingrays and they bring them in. You can take pictures with them. That's not really my thing. I can't even imagine what this would have been like, though, if it was like peak tourism. Because it was still pretty packed. People were coming and going all day, you know, because it's a cruise ship thing. And so we thought if we do the first boat out, then we'll be coming back in as people, you know, they get the cruise ship and then they head on out. So it was legal for me to fly the drone. I looked it up ahead of time, but I'm always very cautious doing this because I don't want to drive people nuts. You know, there's some people that really freak out over the sound of a drone. What I'm finding, though, is that most people don't even hear the drone, even if I take it off like 10 feet from them. I can hear it, you know, like if somebody else is flying it. So there's the top of the boat. Great landing pad, right? Now you can see the sandbar. You can see where it's shallower, so people will stand in a circle. There's different tour groups there. What I would do if I came back is we saw them leave early in the morning. There's like, it looks like a motorcycle gang of jet skis. You head out with your snorkel gear, like 6, 7, 8 jet skis. You take the guide and you just head out. But there's a look at the water. This is, I just wanted to fly my drone. I didn't record the landing. It was a little harder to land than I thought it would be.
Smile.
And then we took the trip out Wednesday night, left after the sun went down to swim with the phosphorescence. And none of it showed up on camera. But underwater, when you move your hands, it was unbelievable, the phosphorescence. So a little insight into my way of vacationing. I'm up at 5:30 even on vacation. I head and work out. Then I get my coffee. I sit at the beach, shoot time lapse, and watch the sun come up. Of course, the sun's coming up behind me.
But they make it hard on me.
I just love it. So Joe and I decided we were going to rent jet skis. I've never ridden a jet ski. And of course, as a content creator, we have to record everything, right? I did figure out on my life vest right here. So we're out for, I think was it only 30 minutes? I think it was 30 minutes. I would do it again, and I would take Nikki out next time. It wasn't cheap. I think it was like $100. And that's something I would never do, but we're both so glad that we did it. It was really fun. Basically what they have is, I think it was a 1 or 2 mile long set of buoys. You can just go back and forth, spin around. And like I said, these things are throttled. The fastest we got them up to was 34 miles an hour. And so once I got a little bit more comfortable, realized I really couldn't tip myself over. Then it was spinning figure eights, S's, going into a turn fast, because I know these things will go a lot faster. My hat flew off a couple times. Oh, you might have noticed the green shirt. I don't expose myself to the sun. You're welcome. I don't like to wear sunscreen, so I just stay covered. This was so much fun. This is definitely worth it. If we were to go back, this is something I would do again. And I would absolutely go back again. We just have to figure out the points thing. I mean, look at the color of that water. That is the color of the water, by the way. This is just the standard GoPro. Natural color mode, whatever. So something we didn't know until our taxi ride back to the airport was an American who's lived there. He's got dual citizenship now. He lived there since the late 80s. There's a lot of things about Grand Cayman I didn't know. I just knew, from the movie The Firm. This is Rum Point. But anyway, they are medical tourism. And there's a whole lot more to the Cayman Islands than I realized. Okay, so let's look at some drone footage. This was Rum Point when we drove around the whole thing right here. When I visited here in '96, there was like nothing there but a little shack. And this is where I think there would be some pretty decent snorkeling. But we actually had dinner reservations, so we were here for like half an hour. Basically enough time for me to walk out, fly the drone. So same thing, I like to come out, nobody's around, I can take off with the drone, not bug anybody. A big part of flying a drone, not just legally, is, besides following the rules, is to be a responsible drone pilot, somebody who doesn't annoy other people with it. This is drone footage from outside the Seafire Kimpton. I was taken off at some building down the thing. Again, because I don't want to bug people. Once it's up, nobody can hear it unless you fly a drone. Then you know. There's looking back at our hotel. So I just flew up just a little ways. So this is just a look at our hotel. There's the pool, obviously. And then we kind of stayed up, I forget, we were on the 7th floor. The gym was down below, so that's a big part of my vacationing, is to chill out, read, but still get some exercise. So work out first thing in the morning. I've been listening to the Peter Attia podcast. Just look up Dr. Peter Attia, A-T-T-A-T-I-L-L-A-A-T. Anyway. Just do a voice search. I really have enjoyed listening to him on the Huberman Labs podcast. So. So what we would do is pretty early, because it stayed like mid 80s the whole time, is we'd go stay at the beach, float in the water, all that good stuff. And then in the afternoon, we would just head to the pool. This was just before sunset. This is, there's a few good sunsets. I just poorly timed it. But see, that guy never even flinched when I took off with the drone. Anyway, right? Facing west. So we got sunset every day. This was not the last morning. The last morning actually drizzled. And so Nikki and I went and we swam right out here by these buoys. We just floated in the water. We were the only people out there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, raining on us. It was awesome. It was so beautiful. This was just like, there's Nikki and I right there. Just enjoying our coffee, letting the sun come up, figuring out what we want to do for the day. Again, not that many people around. Nobody getting bugged by the drone. So anyway, thank you guys very much for following along on the channel and watching videos. I never really know what kind of content to make. I love making content with Steve. It is so much fun. But our trips, our hiking trips, that kind of stuff, as of right now, it is January 31st. That means Milky Way season starts here in the Northern Hemisphere in about a month. But unfortunately, about a month from now, we will be at the International Builder Show, which is a good thing. So come join us there. But it means I'm going to miss that first Milky Way season. So anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to do a lot more content on astrophotography and photography and hiking throughout the year. Thanks for following along, everybody. We will see you in the next video.